We welcome in Brenden Nunes of the Kings Herald, the Kings Beat, the Kings Pulse. Anything Kings, Brenden Nunes covers it. But before we dive back into the Sacramento Kings, maybe a few Arco memories from Brenden. Oh boy, Casey's full of the sitcom comps today. What?
I got another one. Now, I don't have a whole lot, but this one, this is a good one. So Megan earlier said Friends is a younger, whiter, singular Jeffersons, right? I'll take it a step further. The Jeffersons, or I'll take this back. Martin is the Jeffersons.
I see that. I don't see what Megan is saying with the Jeffersons and Friends.
I'm not seeing that one either, but
Jeffersons and the Martins or Martin, I see that. Yeah. I completely see that. You know they taped a Martin reunion like 2 Saturdays ago.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm anxious to see how that plays out.
And they were all there. Well, R.I.P. Tommy. But what I mean is Tisha Campbell and Martin Lawrence were there in the same room.
They made up. Everything's good. Tisha Campbell, that's a loose cannon right there. That's my girl. I like me some Tisha Campbell, but that's a loose cannon right there for sure. And that reminds me, I came across the Instagram page that I followed today. All old My Wife and Kids highlights. Underrated show. My Wife and Kids. Underrated show. I love that show.
This is what happens when the Kings lose. We compare Golden Girls, Living Single. We boot Friends from the conversation, and then we just start making sitcom comps. This is what happens when the Kings lose their biggest game of the year. And Brenden, I want to believe we come in here. I'm disappointed if the Kings lose. I want to believe hey, the Pelicans needed to win the game too. But, man, the fact that they lost by 30 and just, man, felt like old times, Brenden. Felt like the same old story last night.
It did. And thanks for having me on, guys. Always a good time. It was a stinker. It was scary, really, because it did feel like old times, and that's not a good thing in Sacramento. It felt like earlier in the year, we just wrapped up a Kings Beat recording, me and James did, and, pointed out, first 9 games of this team this year, they were 5-4. They played some really good opponents. I think the whole year, we're pretty optimistic about it. And it just went downhill pretty quickly. And, I think that this New Orleans game scares me because there is an optimism around this team. But you have a couple more of these in these final 19 games, and you could get back to this whole Kingsy feeling pretty quickly. I know they had a complicated travel situation with getting to San Antonio. They didn't fly until this morning, but you really got to bounce back, and the New Orleans game needs to be an outlier because it wasn't just missing shots like you did in Brooklyn. It was you rolled over and died, and they gave up, and they hadn't done that before, and it just can't happen.
Yeah, and that's what is going to make this game intriguing because if you do continue to do that on the road, or you look for an excuse and talking about the travel and all this other stuff instead of coming out and competing and playing against a Spurs team that's on your level or maybe a half notch above or below, and you're not able to execute and take care of business, then you're looking like the same old Kings. Regardless of who was traded or who's not here anymore or anything like that, you're looking like the same. And I think that's important for a guy like De'Aaron Fox, to come out and not have the same performance that we saw, in the first 60 or so games in these type of moments, but to come out and be like, all right, well, things are a little different now. I'm doing things differently. We're going about things differently. And this team is not the same old Kings team that we had earlier in the season. We're trying to grow here and improve from that.
Yeah, it's important for a whole lot of things. I think the best case scenario is that they have a top 4 pick this offseason. I think that's the best asset that they could be moving forward with. The team undeniably needs more talent, first of all. Sabonis has to be step 1 for this to be a good move. And they have their assets to be able to do that. But while a higher draft pick may be the better thing to work with this offseason, there is so many reasons that you can't have these stinkers to close the year of Sabonis was excited to come to Sacramento. I don't know that it takes that long of having how many games? 5 games of these 19 to close this, of just everybody deciding that they're all going to try to do hero ball to stop the opposing run that's going on, or there's just no longer a cohesion, or maybe all of a sudden guys get fed up with Dante DiVincenzo taking bad shots and you see the ball movement slow down because there's not as much trust among these guys. And maybe Sabonis like pretty quickly could look around and be like, man, maybe nobody can save this organization. And it's just, you can't let him even have that thought leak into his mind a little bit with poor performances. Like, there has to be a cohesion among this roster where they do need more talent, and I think it's better for them to get a better draft pick moving forward for that reason. But you have to have a fight still in all of these games going forward. And I think Fox and Sabonis performed well. I think the HB performed pretty well in that first half and then just went totally MIA in the second half, which he kind of has a weird tendency to do. But it's the other guys, there is a lack of spacing. Like, there is fit issues that the team needs to work out, but you just can't have one of these where it's the Pelicans aren't 30 points better than you. That needed to be close until at least the final 5 minutes or something like that. Like, again, this wasn't just shooting and shooting poorly. This was you
quitting.
Called it in.
Yeah. And I'm fearful, Brenden, that like that's in the scout now. Like teams are scouting. Like if you play this, if they start missing shots, and this is what I feel like I noticed last night, is when the Kings started missing shots, which was the beginning of kind of everything going south for them. Teams know now, not only are they missing shots, they're going to stop playing hard on defense because they're going to be so desperate to correct what's going on the offensive end. And you could see that game spiraled out of control so quickly because the Pelicans picked up the pace. And it was almost like they were like, here it is. This is literally the moment we were talking about at shoot around. They're missing shots. They're getting lazy on defense. Let's hit them in the chin and get this game over with right now with 12 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you can't let it happen. I think that weirdly the team has lineups that they can throw out there that are decent on defense. The Kings side is like Davion, DiVincenzo. If you want to throw Justin Holiday at the 3, Harrison Barnes, Sabonis, like you have a decent defensive lineup. And I think that was part of the issue yesterday. I think it was more so on the offense, but like you're saying, you miss a shot and the opposing team is able to run it down your throat in transition. You guys aren't running back. We've heard this be an issue a couple of times. It was specifically against Denver because Jokic is such a threat with those outlet passes, but then it leaks over into this Pelicans game. And also, that limits the transition opportunities you get for yourself. The only way you're getting in transition is getting a stop on defense.
Right.
And you're just making the entire game harder for yourself by taking these poor shots and giving them simple opportunities like that. Like, there was an aspect of Brandon Ingram just being on one. That dude was hitting everything. And that's not the issue, though. It's all these other aspects that were effort related and just not being locked in. And there wasn't the ball movement and player movement went away. And that just needs to be the outlier because this can't be a sign of, already starting to second guess. Can I trust that guy kicking it to him in the corner sort of thing? Or if Dante gets the ball here, is he going to throw up something wild? And you can't have that sort of lack of trust start building that was clearly there with Buddy and Bagley.
Yeah. Brenden, we talked a little bit about, this being an evaluation period and turning into, evaluating who plays well with Sabonis, Fox, Barnes, those 3 guys who I think are, the guys that are going to come back. One of the positions I look at is the shooting guard position. And I say they got to figure out what they need to do at the 2 guard position. I think they need to find a little bit of a decent defensive minded guy. And you got 2 guys right here in front of you on your roster, Davion and Dante DiVincenzo. Would you, who out of those 2, I'll ask you this, would you want to see starting at the 2 guard spot?
My answer would have been Dante, but he's gotten pretty frustrating on offense for me. I think that, maybe there's an aspect of if he's playing with Fox and Sabonis, he's not taking these kind of erratic off the dribble shots because I think when he's off the catch, he's still hitting at a good rate. Mm-hmm. But because the offense, I think, again, they're taking some wild shots sometimes. I would look towards Davion. I think that he's a guy that doesn't really play outside of himself. I think that he moves the ball well, penetrates when you need him to. He kind of just does a little bit of everything on offense at like an average level. And he's not ever really hurting you out there. And obviously he's making a difference on the defensive end. So if I would have asked that question a couple games ago, I think it would have pretty easily been Dante, but I'm starting to lean more towards Davion, but certainly wouldn't mind Dante because as much as I'm frustrated with him on offense, he's still a difference maker on defense. He's still one of the better defenders on this team. He's physical, versatile, and a disruptor. So I think that either one really, but right now I lean towards Davion. And Davion's been in a weird situation recently with these minutes. You know, they've been fluctuating so much, and it's just, I think, a weird situation for him because coming into the All-Star break, he was on a tear and had just been hitting at a really good rate, and he slowed down recently, 7 points in that first game back, and then he has 0 the first time all season that we've seen that in the second Denver game, and then you see 13 in that OKC win, but only 4 last night, and just so much fluctuation in his minutes. Like, I think that's a guy that should be out there more. He doesn't do anything too crazy on offense, and he's a positive on defense.
Why do you... Okay, let's stay with that 2 position for a minute. What you just talked about Dante, you just talked about Davion. So why is it Justin Holiday? Why is Justin Holiday starting right now?
I think that they need... I mean, they're running a lot of the same sets, and they had a lot of actions for Buddy. And I think that Justin can play the Buddy role. I don't know that I think it's asking him to do too much, but I think that they have him in the same spot. And I think that among all those guys, Justin's the best shooter until the other 2 prove otherwise, which they totally could. But it almost feels like they want one guy out there that is just going to be very respected from 3 and willing to run these actions and take them off balance a little bit, off pin downs, and he has a built-in synergy with Sabonis. I do think he is a positive on the defensive end, not like making a huge difference or anything, but he's certainly not hurting you there either. So I kind of think it's just somebody that is willing to be the guy that's going to get up a lot of shots in the rhythm of a new offense that it's probably, being the vet, he's probably able to pick up on it pretty quickly compared to maybe Dante. I don't have a great answer, but that's my, if I had to guess, theory there.
How big of a factor do you think, if a factor at all, do you think coaching is on this team's kind of erratic play and kind of what we saw last night?
I think it's a pretty big factor. I don't think necessarily last night that much. I think that there were some rotations. Like somebody in the chat points out, where's Mo Harkless been? And this has been the thing with him all year, right? He either is going to start or he's not going to play at all. And it's just a weird situation. Like, nobody's hitting shots. Put the guy out there that maybe he's not going to hit shots either, but he's going to be a plus on defense. Like, I think there's rotation things that I've questioned with Gentry. And then I think there's also aspects of the offense, like when you see them go into those post-ups so much in OKC and they end up pulling through in that game because they're just way more talented. But these actions on the other side aren't happening. Like, everybody's just kind of standing there. And when Gentry's saying there's a lack of player movement, it's like, well, maybe be a little bit more clear with this is exactly what we want you to do rather than just like freelance. If the ball swings that way, then this is what this side should be doing. Like, I think that the team could use a little bit more structure rather than this like freelance offense that we've seen. I don't know that I can point to anybody on the team and then being like, that guy is being optimized. He's better because of Gentry's system. And I think that like that is where my frustration is with him. So last night, I don't think is really on Gentry. I think that was the guys on the floor getting frustrated and their frustrations kind of snowballing and just getting worse as that third quarter and fourth quarter went on. But throughout the year, I mean, the team definitely needs better coaching. I think that that's one of the biggest moves that they can make this offseason.
Do you have a Do you have someone that you have your eye on in terms of a potential Kings head coach, or do you have a Brenden Nunes power rankings of potential Kings head coaches?
No, there's probably a Jill Adge power rankings.
There's 1,000% a Jill Adge power rankings for sure.
I'm sure there is. She's the one to ask. I'll throw out a few, I guess. Like, I really like Kenny Atkinson, and we know that ownership certainly likes to model themselves after the Warriors. Kenny's in Golden State right now. I think that, like, Frank Vogel is interesting to me, who's probably on his way out.
Is there
with
another
the
Frank
Lakers.
Vogel in the league? Are there two Frank Vogels?
Probably on his way out, right?
He's definitely on his way out. It didn't work out very well the last time the Lakers hired the guy from, or the Kings hired the guy from the Lakers who was on the way out. But
it's true. It's
Frank
true.
Vogel
I
is a
got
better
that pointed
coach
out
than-
to me a lot. Yes, Luke couldn't get LeBron to the playoffs, which is maybe underselling Luke a little. Like, there's more to that season than just that, I guess. But I mean, you just saw Frank Vogel win a championship. Like, there is a difference,
Well, you did, but let's not gloss over Orlando.
Yeah, let's
Like,
not act like
it's
Manning
true.
got fired 2 other times.
That's true.
I mean,
And the most important thing with a coaching hiring is that they actually have a process, right? That it's not just going out and Monty already knows I want this exact guy. Like, go through the entire process, talk it through, do the interviews, because that not happening previously is what led to, like, the issue with Walton. Or, yeah, I mean, it's just that's been the issue here, is that we need everybody on the same page. And it's still, like, unclear if Walton was even McNair's guy, which at this point, like, he deserves to be attached to McNair because he made that decision, but still doesn't quite feel like that was his guy. So maybe this offseason, McNair can get somebody where they're all going to be on the same page and just have a process is all that I really ask.
the Kings are better defensively if Frank Vogel is the coach. Like, that's a given.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. But
Right.
I think there's a lot that comes with Frank Vogel. That
I like Terry Stotts. Like, obviously he
Same.
was doing well with Portland, like, and they just changed it up because they had to change something, and clearly he wasn't the issue.
bad
And then there's always going to be
team, though.
assistants.
I
They were.
like Terry Stotts too, but that was a bad defensive team.
They were, but their talent kind of, like, I don't know. They weren't expected to be a good defense, but they were pretty tough every single year. And then there's always going to be assistants that I'm just going to learn the name of in a couple months that emerge, and it's like all of a sudden this guy's a great candidate, and he just was quietly on the bench somewhere, like a Darvin Ham in Milwaukee, or yeah, there's always a handful of assistants that end up coming up, and
There's an
working out pretty
Adelman
well.
out there. Is it
There isn't.
There is.
David Adelman?
Bring it back.
I
There
forgot
is.
his.
The most important thing, and you guys know this, I'm not breaking any news here, is it just has to be perfect. It has to be a perfect hire. Everything they do this
The whole
off-
offseason has to be perfect.
yeah, it has to be perfect. Whatever they do with that draft pick, whether they make the pick or trade this coach, I don't like. I understand what you're saying, Brendan. I don't care if Monty has a guy right now and says we're not going through the process. I know who I want and gets him. Fine, it just has to hit, because you could go through the process and get the guy that sucks, and the process don't matter. It's all results based right now with this particular group. It's all results based. How you get there, I don't think anybody really cares. I know I don't care. It's all results based. Everything has to work.
and winning fixes everything, right? I'll say the one guy I don't want, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple, but I would not be a fan of Doug Christie.
Wow, Brenden
Great-
Nunes,
great
hates
guy.
Doug Christie, gonna be
No, no,
tough
no.
to face
No,
him.
no, no.
in
Cut
the
it up,
tunnel.
Jeffrey. Cut it up.
Wow, this clip's going on social media. In fact, cut
we
this
go.
clip. I'll text it to him. Go ahead. No, continue. I think I know why, but
It's just a lack of experience as a coach. And, like, obviously experience as a player. I think that Doug can get guys to play hard for them, but it just feels very Vlade getting hired as GM, where it's a former player who would have a lot of leeway with the fan base, but maybe is not the most qualified to fully be jumping into that number one spot as the head coach, and I think that aspect of like would have leeway with the fan base. I would be very concerned that was the reasoning, that it's like, oh, well, they're going to give him a little bit more time before they really start turning on him, because that's Doug Christie, and I just think that is poor reasoning.
Well, you make a good point there, Brenden, but the chat, they're 100% on point here. Brenden with the chair shot.
Yeah.
Cole saying Brenden turned heel. Brenden with the steel chair. I mean,
Oh my God!
Right in the back. Right in the back. Unbelievable, Brandon. Just a shot at Doug Christie for no reason. Doug Christie, Kings legend. Here comes Brenden Nunes.
What is he doing? Oh my God! Is he the third man? He's the third man. What the hell is going on here?
Damn shame, Brenden. Damn shame.
underrated on that one is Dusty.
Oh, Dusty's so good. Dusty's so good. I love that Brenden has no idea what either of those sound bites are from. That makes sense.
Brenden, have you ever seen White Men Can't Jump?
Do I have to admit this? I have
No,
not.
I don't expect you to see it. You're
I have not.
22.
No, I have not.
Yeah.
I gotta
think
get on it, though.
That's all the more reason they need to do the reboot, I guess.
I'm slightly amused. I know he listens regularly, but it's great for so many reasons. Deuce tweeted promoting Night Chat tonight. There's no forbidden door. Tonight, the crossover event of a lifetime. Deuce Mason, Kenny Caraway, Night Chat. But the GIF is Kadeem Hardison and Woody Harrelson from White Men Can't Jump. And it just... it makes me happy.
That's hilarious.
It makes me happy. It's good stuff. Brenden, no time to really lick their wounds. They got a game tonight. Greg Popovich is looking to become, or at least tie the most victories for a head coach in NBA history. It was kind of a package deal. The Kings really needed to get both of them. Do you think that this team has the mental capacity to regroup and get one tonight?
I'm going to choose to think yes until I'm proven otherwise, because it's a new group of guys, 6 new ones. Like it's hard to say because we don't know yet with this group. I think it's different enough that it doesn't feel fair to say, yeah, we've seen them do it plenty of times earlier this year, because it is so many new faces. So I think that this game is going to tell us a whole lot about this team, though, because you did just get punched in the mouth by a team that you're rubbing shoulders with, and you're doing all this talk of still wanting to chase the 10 seed, then show that is the plan. And it doesn't matter what my numbers are, your numbers are, or who's starting or whatever's going on here, that we're all here trying to get wins and progress this team and franchise to the next step and show that we're not pushovers. Like, you know how quickly the conversation is going to start to get out of hand if it hasn't already, that the Kings made an absolutely horrible trade. Like, it's already borderline too far, right? Sometimes. I mean, I think that it could end up being a horrible trade. Like, I understand why that argument's presented. But you know how quickly that you're going to hear that with people saying that with absolute certainty if they just come out and lose by 15, 20 tonight to the Spurs as well? Because then you're looking at it's like, how good of a team do they need to add so that way they're not just fighting for the 10 seed next year? Because the team that you just fought last night is going to be adding Zion Williamson to their team. They're getting better, and they're probably a 9, 10 seed. The Clippers are right there. They're going to add Kawhi and PG. Like, all of these teams are going to be getting better, and sure, the idea is the Kings are too, but you need to prove that this move doesn't just have you in the 10-9 spot, because you need to be a jump above that, and you're going to kind of show what is the identity and the fight of this team tonight, because you don't know what is going on with the team until they hit adversity. Like we saw earlier in the year with this Kings team, it was all good until Halliburton went down. They started losing a couple of games and dealt with injuries all throughout the year, and just if they got hit, they stayed down. So I'm going to need this Kings team to get back up and really have a good fight. I don't give a damn about the flight situation. Like, I don't want to hear it. Sure, I don't mind acknowledging it. It does make a difference, but I don't want to hear it. These are the two games that had to be circled as the biggest games that you had to save your season. And absolute stinker in the first one. You better come out in the second one.
It's Brenden Nunes, the King's Pulse, the King's Beat, and the King's Hair.